This has connections all throughout the Bible, starting from Genesis chapter 1. Actually, this be more. This is the creation narrative. Be more Genesis chapter 2. I love Genesis. All right, I get it. If you know anything about me, I love Genesis. All right, I bring it up all the time. I think if we can understand Genesis, we can really begin to understand what Jesus is doing. But in the creation narrative, you have two trees. You have the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And so Jesus is calling this woman away from her broken cisterns, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, to experience living water, the tree of life. He's calling her away from her own understanding of wisdom and truth and how a good life looks, and to accept God's wisdom, God's way, God's good life that God has for her. We often fall for this deception. We often choose this over here. We choose to say, this is just the way the world is, Jesus. It's just the way the world is. This is the truth of the matter. And you know what? Yeah, you have this living water that you're talking about. Yeah, you got something that you sound like you have it ready to give to me. And I'm curious about it. She was curious about it. She wanted it. But she goes back to focusing on the well, and she's like, wow, you don't have a long rope. It's hard to get to this truth. It's not easy, and I have to build walls around it, and I have to really just support it with all of this logic and reasoning that I have about how the world is, my own truth. You don't have a rope, Jesus. You can't get to this truth. Others don't have a rope. This is my truth. This is how the world makes sense. And God's truth doesn't really make sense all the time. This leads us to the next wall. I had a little bit of fun with naming this wall. And noise alert for anyone. It's about to get a little bit loud in here. But I named this wall after a wall that I think Colonel Jessup encountered in the movie A Few Good Men. This is the wall that has us looking at God and at those around us saying, you can't handle the truth. Did I do a good job? How's my Jack Nicholson? Anybody? Is that good? Yeah. I'll work on it. This is a wall that is huge, intimidating. This is when shame not only affects our identity, our own identity, but it also affects how we see the world around us. This is, in one word, hopelessness. This is a wall that keeps us focused on the world that we see around us, that we hear the news, that we experience on a daily basis, and we say, man, it's crazy out there. I don't see how God's going to be able to do anything about that. I don't see how God can do anything through me about that. We begin to lose sight of how God sees the world. We say that living water sounds like a good idea. But then we have to ask, have we replaced the living water with the Dead Sea? What is the Dead Sea? It is a salt body of water that is surrounded by land. Nothing really flows into it, and if rivers around it do flood and water gets into it and fish happen to end up in the Dead Sea because of the flooding, they almost immediately die. The only thing living in there is bacteria and fungus, which I think is another good example of the life that we choose sometimes, just full of bacteria and fungus. Imagine if the Dead Sea was all you knew of water. You had no idea that there was something out there, something better. To me, the Dead Sea is when we get to a point where we aren't really living, we are just coping. We find mechanisms and things that just keep us getting from one day to the next. Just one more day. I think I can make it through just a little bit longer. Coping. Sam is used to her routine, and she thinks this is how it's supposed to be. She's walked those treaded pathways so long, going to the well at midday, that she thinks, this is it. This is my life. She yearns for the living water Jesus is talking about, but she doesn't understand that there is another wall in her way. So let's continue in John chapter 4, verses 17, starting in halfway through 17. It says, Jesus said to her, well, remember she just said, I don't have a husband, which was true, but it's not the whole truth. It's her truth. I don't have a husband. And Jesus said, you're right. You don't have a husband. For you have had 5 husbands, and you aren't even married to the man you're living with now. You certainly spoke the truth. Sir, the woman said, you must be a prophet. So tell me, why is it that you Jews insist that Jerusalem is the only place of worship, while we Samaritans claim it is here at Mount Gerizim where our ancestors worshipped? You see, Sam was a product of her time. There's a lot of reasons why she could have had 5 husbands. John is not interested in telling us why she had 5 husbands, okay? Yes, maybe some of it was divorce. It could have been, she could be a widow. She could have had husbands die. Maybe they left her. Maybe she left them. There's many, many reasons why she's had 5 husbands. But to get drilling down right to the point, she's not living with the husband that she has now. And to be perfectly honest, it was not easy being a woman in Jesus' day. She almost needed a husband, some way to support her. Maybe she had kids at home and she did not have a way to provide for them. And so maybe it was just easier to live with this man and not marry him, because it's been painful in the past marrying and then maybe they die or they leave her. And so she's just going to avoid that part, but she's just going to live with him and receive the support that he gives and cling to that. That's the truth that she's going to accept now as her truth. It's not a wall that she built for herself. There are experiences and circumstances that wall us in. That wall me in, that wall you in. And I like to call these the wall or the walls that they built. I imagine these walls to be extremely tall and extremely close. So close that when you breathe, you can just feel your own breath off of the wall. These walls can be a myriad of different things. They can be money-related, poverty-related. They can be family-related, right? We have people around us that are close to us that are supposed to be there for us, and they aren't. They could be health issues that we didn't ask for. They could be sinful temptations that we feel like we have no control over, that we didn't ask for. The list goes on and on. We didn't put up the walls, but we choose to cope behind them. We don't understand how to get around these walls. We don't know how others can get around these walls. And sometimes we fall for this lie. We often fall for the lie that no one can get around this wall, not even God. The only way to get around this wall is if the thing that put it up there takes it down. The only way to get around this wall, or someone else built the wall, right? So they must take it down. We think that some wrong must be made right before the shame will go away. And then here's where the real beautiful part comes into play. This is where it gets real good. This is where I get real excited about this, because what once brought us shame, what once tore us down, what once walled us off from the world around us, becomes a beautiful story. Becomes a beautiful story of redemption. It becomes your testimony. Real quick, go with me back to John chapter 4, starting in verse 28. Then Jesus told her, I am the Messiah. Well, that's the last word we left off. And then it says, the woman left her water jar beside the well and ran back to the village, telling everyone, come and see. I wonder where Pastor Brad got that title for this series. Come and see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could he possibly be the Messiah? So the people came streaming from the village to see him. Now let's skip down to verse 29, okay? Many Samaritans from the village believed in Jesus because the woman had said, he told me everything I ever did. When they came to see him, they begged him to stay in their village. So he stayed for 2 days, long enough for many more to hear his message and believe. Then they said to the woman, the people that she once hid from, they who built walls around her, said to the woman, now we believe, not just because of what you told us, but because we have heard him ourselves. Now we know that he is indeed the Savior of the world.